Good afternoon. Is everyone still awake? We are coming to the end, so I will try and keep my comments fairly brief, but I couldn't help myself because I get very excited when the topic of bioenergy comes up, and we're here for international collaborations, and I've had the opportunity to participate now. This is my fourth International Bioenergy Days conference, and I always look forward to the date on the calendar when I get to see many friends, business partners, and new faces as well. So for those of you who this is the first time participating in the IBED conference, welcome, and very glad to see you here. So I'll see if I can get my screen popped up. On occasion, it will appear on the screen, but not in front of me, so we'll see if we can resolve the technical issues. Okay, so just very quickly, a few words on the Biobusiness Alliance of Minnesota, the organization. We were created in 2004 by our then Governor, Tim Pawlenty, who formerly was making a run for president this past year, and he has now endorsed candidate Romney for the Republican nomination. But he saw the area of life sciences being very critical to positioning Minnesota for the future. And so my role at our nonprofit, which we receive about 30% of our operational budget from the state directly, is to oversee all of our activities statewide in the area of clean technology. That includes renewable energy and renewable materials. I have other colleagues that focus on medical device and biotechnology as well. Related to biomass, I just wanted to share with all of you who are either already doing business in the U.S. or the upper Midwest or Minnesota perhaps, when it comes to biomass, whether it's woody, forest-based biomass or agricultural-based biomass, there's a lot of it out there. And I think that sometimes we're working with companies who are trying to better understand what does the supply look like. And so just very quickly, I just wanted to refer some of you who have interest that there is an updated U.S. going ton update that's available right now that has basically revalidated the fact that on an annual basis, by 2030, there will be 1.1 billion dry tons of biomass available. And that does take into account the impact of farm and forest products that are traditional industries. So this is additional biomass that is available for energy conversion and new products. Very quickly, I also wanted to touch on something that Bill had mentioned this morning in his talk. In the Midwest area, there's a concerted effort with a number of states in what's called Heating the Midwest with Renewable Biomass. For those of you who are representing heating products in Sweden or doing business in Europe and are looking to expand into the U.S. In complementary fashion to what's going on in the Northeast U.S., the Midwest region is now looking to really call to action policymakers regarding the awareness and the opportunities to expand renewable, sustainable biomass for heating applications. And so I'm going to just quickly share some numbers that we put together as an informal working group representing primarily industry, but also nonprofits, academic and government sectors. When we quickly took a snapshot of traditionally what we've thought of as the Midwest region in our working group that was represented, what you'll see here is on the very top line, nationwide, approximately when it comes to home heating, you're looking at an even distribution of 50% on natural gas, which is very cheap and abundant, as I'm sure many of you are aware of, and then all other forms of heating. And the other category, which is 2%, that's biomass, and that's other forms of renewables. When it comes to specifically the Midwest region, and Minnesota is part of that, states that are in the gray area that are developing this working group, what you see is there's predominantly mostly homes served with natural gas. But what we're looking at is still an opportunity of 30% of home heating can be provided with other sources. So we're looking at having biomass displace fuel, oil, electrical heating, and then propane. What does that translate into, and why is it important? You've heard all these different, I think, very valid comments made today, so I'm not going to go into that. But for our region specifically, what we're looking at is currently, if we can move that number to 3%, or right now, it's only 3% coming from renewables. If we can move that number to a similar goal that the Northeast working group has stated, if 25% of all home heating would come from renewable resources, and of that 25%, 75% would come from sustainable biomass, you're looking at an equivalent, a rough equivalent of about 9.5 million tons per year of pellets that would need to be consumed in those residential markets. Approximately $1 billion in new dollars injected into the regional economy, and over $4 billion reduction in non-renewable fossil fuel costs. That makes sense to a lot of folks. And so we are continuing that effort. Part of what we're seeing as being very key when it comes to additional partnerships. So we're working regionally, collaboratively across states, but certainly one of the big areas that Minnesota's focused on is continuing to build upon the Swedish relationships that we have. And Bidder's has been a very big piece of that. The community of Lidköping, the western region of Sweden, have been fantastic partners. And what we've looked at is from the state perspective, we're also saying, how do we continue to expand that Swedish relationship? And so we will soon be announcing more details regarding a more formal working relationship between the Biobusiness Alliance of Minnesota, representing Minnesota state interests, and then Stabio, the Swedish Bioenergy Association. And what we're looking to do is to continue to develop very specific biomass to energy projects in Minnesota, leveraging Stabio's biomass energy companies, excuse me, as well as looking at how do we encourage, from the state perspective, and then translating that to Sweden, not only policy design, but also policy exchange from our policymakers. And so this is something that is continuing to develop and take shape. There'll be more information to come, in, I would say, within the next month or so. Right now, we've been able to get some seed funding provided for the development of that partnership, which I believe is definitely going to be coming through the saga stories that Frank had mentioned earlier. We received some money from the Swedish Energy Agency to provide a grant to Stabio to look at how we continue to develop and get company engagement into specific Minnesota projects. The state of Minnesota, along with the private foundation in Minnesota, has contributed money to the development, again, of these regionally, community-scale, distributed energy generation from biomass projects. So we're very excited about that. Very quickly regarding the partnership, the two contacts right now between Stabio and the Biobusiness Alliance, myself, and then Megan Sundstrand. So I just wanted to share that contact information with all of you. And then what I've really been asked to do in my presentation is to welcome you all officially to the International Bioenergy Days Conference that will take place next year in Mankato, Minnesota. John Fry, the Executive Director of IBED, is going to provide you with a more formal invitation as well and welcome in his upcoming presentation. But I wanted to just share what I thought would be fun for many of you that have been participating and for those of you who have been our first-time participants this year. Hopefully this works. It always makes me a bit nervous when we try to get something off the website. I was just going to read a quick little piece this is from the first U.S.-based International Bioenergy Days Conference that took place in Mankato, which is where it will be again next year. Back in 2008, many of us in the room were part of this initial event that was stateside. And what we had was a lot of media coverage, a lot of excitement, focusing in on what is International Bioenergy Days, why is the partnering between the U.S. and Sweden so important. So the largest newspaper in the state of Minnesota, which is the Star Tribune, they have approximately 500,000 subscribers to an actual newspaper, and in addition to the online presence. they had sent a team of reporters down to cover the event. And I just wanted to take a quick peek because a few weeks ago I was preparing this presentation and I thought that was such a wonderful experience for so many people that attended, and I continue to hear about it today. It made me want to go back and think about the past as we look and plan for the future. And I know that we have very similar success stories and positive pieces from the events here in the Tribune and Trollhagen, Rockford. It's really been a very good experience. And the one piece that I wanted to read was, the reporter starts out and he had said, amid the throngs of iPod-toting, hoodie-wearing college students scurrying across campus because the event is held on a state college campus in Minnesota, something was burning. Several things, actually: grain, chips, and wood pellets inside a large white tent outside the student center. Men with names like Per and Christopher were demonstrating the pride and joy of Swedish ingenuity, energy-efficient biofuel furnaces that emit far less pollution than their traditional counterparts. Nearby, Swedes and Americans furiously scribbled notes, exchanged business cards, shook hands, and passed out literature. That's what this is all about. And we've had some positive stories come out of that, a lot of solidified business relationships, and that's what gets me excited and why I look forward to this event every year. And this is about a 2-minute video that I also wanted to play because I think many of you can relate to this, and this is why we all participate. We'll have to put up with the commercial here very briefly, but okay. Unfortunately, I don't think the sound is going to be loud enough to do this, but that's why I should always test things before you try. But what I would suggest is for any of you that would like to see this story covered, there was a lot of interest that was generated. Come see me and be happy to show it to you at the table. And it's about a 2-minute video that explains why this event is so important and the reaction from many of the folks that attended. So with that, I think I'll let Nadir introduce John Fry from the Radio Institute. And again, welcome to IBED 2012.